Welcome back to another episode of the Drum Candy Podcast. This is your host, Mike Dawson, the Chief Creative Officer for Drum Factory Direct. In this episode, I have Thomas Wendt and David Throckmorton back in the studio, and we are doing 10 Reasons to Love Paul Motian. Paul Motian was one of the most prolific jazz drummers, band leaders, composers of the 20th century and beyond. Paul Motian played an important role in freeing up drummers from playing strict timekeeping roles. It began in the 1950s with his revolutionary work with the Bill Evans Piano Trio. Then from the mid-60s to mid-70s, he was a part of the Keith Jarrett Trio. It was around that time that Paul Motian decided that he was going to focus primarily on his own compositions and his own groups, whether he was the leader or the co-leader. One of the most notable was with saxophonist Joe Lovano and guitarist Bill Frisell. So in this episode, again, I'm letting David and Thomas handle picking their choices because I just wanted them to give me some suggestions. I have some things that I love in Paul Motian's discography, but I knew there was more. He's played on hundreds of records. So this is a really interesting one. It starts kind of inside and it goes pretty far outside. Let's get into 10 Reasons to Love the great Paul Motian. 10 Reasons to Love Paul Motian, Motian, aka Paul Motian. Again, this is another episode where I do have some records that I really love with Paul on, but I wanted to give you guys the floor to school me again. So let's see how we go here. We're going to do the opposite. So in the Al Foster, we went past the present. This time we're going to start slightly later and then work our way backwards. We're going to go from the 90s back to the 50s and so on and so forth. So we're going to kick it off with Throck's first pick, which 1992, Keith Jarrett, Chandra. I don't know this record at all. So
you don't know this record?
No, I don't think so.
It's one of the more normal little trio records.
Okay. Know? So what is it about this one?
Well, I say the same stuff all the time. I mean, Paul Motian had a long history with playing with Keith Jarrett.
I do know this record. I'm an idiot.
The great trio. I mean, the great pianist. But they had, Paul played in his American quartet, and then they played them as a trio with Charlie Hayden and Keith and Paul. And then when Keith started the trio with Gary Peacock and Jack in the 80s, that band went on until as long as Keith was still playing. There was this gig they did that got recorded that Jack, I guess, couldn't make, and Paul was on the gig. And so, yeah, it's just nice to hear Paul playing with Keith again, and just playing tunes and just playing brushes on this. It's just a nice little tune. Keith's playing his butt off as always.
Have you guys played at the Deerhead Inn?
I never have. No.
Nope, have not.
It doesn't look like a big space. It's like a restaurant kind of vibe, isn't it? From what I remember seeing.
It's like an really nice older, like building in kind of place. It's very nice.
Yeah, I do know this record because I was deep into the trio with Jack, and I got this, and it was kind of the same reaction with Al. Like, whoa, this is not the same thing.
Yeah.
This is a different thing. So we're going to start from the beginning here, Chandra. way more inside than I remember it now.
Yeah.
I think what were we talking about before when you like guys who when they play out, who've had experience playing in, like that's the key.
Yeah, for sure. And I think most of the, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Paul's. Like he's one of my, 10 favorite drummers of all time. But he, I think a lot of the music I have with him is that I listen to the most is later in his life, like the last 25 years of his life or 30, and it's also mostly, not all, but a lot of it is leaning towards like a little freer, not totally free jazz, but a lot of stuff out of time, a lot of rubato kind of like playing, lots of weird instrumentations of groups, bands with no bass. So this was nice just to kind of hear him just playing piano trio with his guys. It's just really, it's a nice record. And also they just released alternate stuff from this session. There's a new record of this from this same
great stuff.
Same dates. What's it called? The Old Country, is that what it's called?
I believe so. Yeah.
That might be right. I might be wrong. But it just got
can't remember.
released a few months ago.
That was great.
I mean, really, he was just playing time, but still has his own slant on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Whether he's playing brushes or sticks, it's like there's a certain thing he does,
Totally.
A lot of times he's playing those Regal like nylon brushes.
Yep.
And there's a certain sound you get with that I associate with him a lot, and I like it. I like the way, it's weird. Sometimes I'll hear different drummers using brushes like that, and sometimes you play them and think they're hard to play. Then you hear people play them, you're like, those sound really cool.
They can.
Like Higgins was like that, and Jack at times. Like it can be really cool.
They can, for sure. Yep.
I remember Erskine using those. I know he's a big fan of Paul.
He is.
I don't know if there's any connection there. If that was just the time everyone in the 90s was using nylon brushes. I don't know. At the time.
Yeah.
Well, that's a nice, easy way to get into Paul Motian. I think if you're scared of the more kind of freer stuff,
that's a
beautiful start. So now we go.
Well, go ahead.
Say
I
now
was
we're
going to say you could
back.
Obviously go back to the Bill Evans trio stuff. I'm not sure that's where we're starting.
That is
okay.
Well, I think this is like his third record. It's early in his discography. This is from the Bill Evans Riverside record called New Conceptions in Jazz, which was Bill's first record on Riverside. And it's a really good record. It's very interesting to hear these guys play. This is from 1955, I believe. I think it's 55 or 56. I think it's 55. And the tune I picked was George Shearing's tune Conception, which is a great tune. It's a hard tune, but it's great. And I picked it because Paul sounds great. He sounds like just a great straight ahead jazz drummer. But it's I think drummers today who only know the end of his career aren't going to realize, like, man, this guy had a great cymbal beat. He spoke that language well. We're going to hear him. We're going to hear the end of the piano solo, and then he and Teddy Kotick, the bass player, kind of trade. The form is kind of oblong on this tune, so they kind of just trade back and forth. But you can hear he's just a really great young drummer. So
this is 3 minutes into Conception.
He sounds great, you know?
Yeah.
And it's really, I remember when I first heard this, man, he's got a great cymbal beat. Like it really feels good, and he gets a good sound, and it's cool to hear, especially in light of a lot of the other things we're going to hear, which are very, very different musically.
He was playing a lot of drums, and that's a piano trio. Mm-hmm. Like that's pretty bold. I wouldn't be that comfortable playing that much drums with a piano trio personally.
Yeah, no, he's not afraid to play, and he's definitely got. There was some interesting little things he played in that. You know, I mean, definitely there's a musical personality there for sure. You know, not just a great, you know, sort of functioning drummer.
So that band, how many years did that trio work?
Well, it's a slightly different trio because the bass player changed.
Okay.
Changed a couple of times. I mean, the classic trio is the one with Scott LaFaro, but then he, of course, tragically died in a car accident. In, I believe, 1962, I think was the year, if I'm not mistaken. And then Chuck Israels came in.
Oh, right.
Who was wonderful. I mean, he was a great addition to that group, and the records that they made were, I think, really great. Scott LaFaro was great, of course, too.
Who was on bass on that record?
A guy named Teddy Kotick, who isn't very well known. He played with Horace Silver. He played with a bunch of people back then. He was just kind of a busy young freelancing bassist. Really good player, though.
So, do you know when Paul left Bill Evans?
I think it was in the early 60s. I think what his last studio record might have been Moonbeams. I can't remember exactly. But it wasn't he actually wasn't with Bill's trio for that as long as you might think.
Yeah, like 6 years maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's a lot of output. A lot of classic output.
Sure.
In 6 years.
And that was a very, you know, historically those guys kind of opened a new door for how to play in that setting, you know, which is great. He was a huge part of that.
We're going to jump ahead to 1997. John Patitucci, Quasimodo. Again, I don't think I know this one.
I don't think I know this one either. What record is this from, Tarek?
This is I'm blanking on the title. I can see the title. I'm usually really...
One More Angel?
One More Angel. Yeah. So this is interesting because prior to this record, all of John's records, Patitucci's records, were kind of a little more on the fusion tip. You know, I mean, it's not just fusion, but jazz fusion.
Sure,
you know? You know, they all have acoustic and electric bass on those records. But he was living in the West Coast when he was a member of Chick Corea's electric band. You know, on those records, you have tons of different drummers. You know, there's 5 or 6 records with drummers. But, you know, you have from Weckl to Vinny to Erskine to Al Foster to Alex Acuna and Terry Lynn Carrington and Will Kennedy and Vinny Colaiuta, if I didn't say that. You know, on and on. And this record, Motion's on the whole record, and it's when he came back to New York. And so like Michael Brecker's on this record and Chris Potter, among other people. But it's cool. This is the beginning of the album. It kind of starts with Paul just kind of soloing over this intro, and it's super loose, but it's just dripping with vibe, and it's so different than any like John record prior to this. You know.
Wow. I'm not familiar with it. I'm looking forward to it.
And then the next record after this, like, had Bill Stewart on it, so it was like still New York-y kind of jazz, but it was like a little more like you know, in there.
Yeah.
But this is kind of it's a really cool record.
Cool.
Did you come to this being a fan of Paul or a fan of Patitucci?
Both. I started to get into Paul a little prior to this.
Okay.
I probably wasn't like a total fanatic like I became some years later, but I really enjoyed it, and I was excited about this record when it came out.
So it didn't surprise you, like, where's Weckl, where's Vinny? You knew.
No, I was just like, oh, that's cool. This is you know, the mood of this record is very different. There's a story behind it. I mean, there's, you know, if you check the record out, there's some personal stuff John was going through, and this record has a lot to do with that. But
wow,
but it's really beautiful music, you know.
Cool. All right, from the top, Quasimodo. Who's on piano?
Man,
I think Alan Pasquale might be on this.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that, but it's a really cool record.
Wow. Yeah.
man, I got to check that out. That's really interesting. You know
Yeah.
what knocked me out is his bass drum sound, but with Patitucci, like it wasn't getting in the way.
Yeah.
Like they complemented each other.
Yeah,
like
it was distant enough or something.
man,
It's super loose, but it's
Man.
like it eventually kind of
it's really great.
It just I'm sure there I doubt there was much rehearsal. From what I know about Paul, and I'm sure it was just like roll tape and let's just play, and you can hear it. Like it takes a minute to
Yep.
find his thing, but it has so much vibe.
Oh man.
And I'll say this a lot about Paul, I'm sure, during the course of this, but there are other drummers that did this for me as well. But at a certain time, developing as a young drummer in my 20s or whatever, like he really opened up like some new doors of like, okay, you can treat the music like this, you can play like this, you can do this, and I was like, wow, I would never at that point have thought to do a lot of these things. And I just love him. He's amazing.
I was not really into him that much at all for the earlier part of my life. I mean, I had heard the Bill Evans records and I liked those, but the more recent stuff I wasn't really into. But when I was living in New York, I heard him at the Village Vanguard with the Bill Frisell Lovano trio, which was not anything like what I was into at the time. And at the time, I didn't really like it all that much, but I did because of kind of what you're saying. It was like, wow, you can play drums like that, and it's like you can make some really great music. Like it's like I was like 18, and it was just like, wow, it really kind of made me stop and think about it, which was I'm grateful for that,
Yeah, there's some of these drummers that kind of age and go through life and never really change how they play, and they still can play really technically, like technical and really crisp still. Like someone like Buddy Rich was just ripping until he died. Excuse me. Someone like you hear Steve Gadd now. He plays kind of how he always played. Jack DeJohnette plays how he always played. Elvin played the way he played always. But sometimes I think about, as I get a little older, like, it's cool to stay the same, but I also want to be trying to find some new stuff to do with the instrument. And I've thought this way for a long time. And Paul's playing, it did change. All that other stuff, all that, like I said, the in playing and the more normal playing, it informs to me the more avant-garde playing, the freer playing. And I think that's why it's good. As someone's just kind of just goofing around making sound, it can sound cool for a minute or two, but you're going to realize real quick there's not much in there.
Happening,
And so guys like Blackwell, for me, Elvin to an extent, just the way he plays in general, Motian, like these guys, they make me think about different ways to play and how they're just an inspiration to things I might want to do. Not saying I want to play just like them, but open me up to new ideas and new a new vision of how you can play and what's available.
100%. I think I got from him that like I think so often we work on working on the functions of a drummer that we all have to do on 98% of the gigs we play, but he let me know, like, yeah, that's cool, but there are other ways to play drums in a group where it's not so much about a function, but you're making a contribution to the music that isn't about playing the role of a drummer. So often I think I thought that, like, yeah, drummers contribute artistically, but it's while we're doing our job. At least that's how I thought of it when I was younger. But he was like, yeah, you don't always have that job to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, that cut, you got Patitucci laying down a perfect bass
beautiful,
line.
yeah.
I could see him, the way Patitucci gets intense
and then probably smiling and laughing when it's like, whoa, that's the way you're going to play this intro? Okay. Because it's not like he's coming in soft. It's like, whoa, the drums.
Yeah, he
hit
certainly
And
makes an entrance.
That's a huge part of it too, is the sound of the drums. At that point, he's playing a Gretsch kit, like a 5-piece Gretsch kit with 2 rack toms and a 20-inch bass drum, usually wide open, usually not tuned especially high, but not crazy low all the time either. But there's just a lot of sound. And that's another thing. Like it's hard to play drums that sound like that. You have to learn to get your touch together. And you know, it can be fun to play really dead drums as well. But I love the idea of learning how to control an instrument that responds that way, whether you're
100%.
tuning high or low, but just all that resonance and just learning to deal with that sound. You can learn a lot from drums and cymbals that have a good bit of wash and sustain with a cymbal, or drums that are open and have a lot of tone. You have to kind of learn to play them, you know?
100%. You got to have a real touch and have dynamic control. I've never been a huge fan of his cymbal sound. Like later on,
yeah, it's most of the cymbals are kind of heavy.
yeah,
But there's something about the way he plays. I mean, that's the same ride cymbal that Al plays.
totally.
They
yeah.
play in different ways. They
No,
play a
absolutely.
different kind of a stick. But I think I like the boldness of kind of like the statement.
I understand.
Yeah. He
More than like
embraces
that's
it.
the cymbal I want to just swing real hard on.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah, he's kind of taken, this cymbal's kind of gongy. We're going to make it gongy.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what we're doing.
that's what we're doing.
No,
Yeah.
totally. I think you're right. That's a great point.
So we're going to go now back to 1961, back to the Bill Evans Trio, Glorious Step.
Yeah, this is from the classic Live at the Village Vanguard recording. Scott LaFaro died very quick after this, and I think this is a classic recording. But what I hear that's interesting in this is he's still sort of playing in sort of a traditional jazz drummer's role, but he's starting to become more open. Especially like using the hi-hat a little bit different. A lot of times he's kind of playing it on 2 and 4, but other times he plays it on the downbeat or he doesn't play it at all. And all of a sudden it's just like you feel the music just kind of go like that a little bit. Like it's a little more open. And it's a classic live recording, obviously. So I figured we should play something from it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, this was probably the most listened to record for me,
Yeah.
these couple of recordings.
Yeah. Portrait in Jazz and this
Yeah.
one. And yep.
Who was it? Was it in the documentary or maybe it's an interview where he was talking about playing with Scott LaFaro was kind of what made him like, I can't play time. Like, it doesn't make sense to just play time. I don't remember if that was in a documentary or
I can't
something.
remember either.
But it was like the group kind of created his sound. It wasn't like one day, I'm not going to play time anymore or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. You can kind of hear him sort of experimenting with it a little bit on this.
So this is from the top of Glorious Step. The bass is going wild.
Yeah.
It's nice though.
It's nice.
It's really, I mean, it's something, you know. I was thinking, especially during the melody, and I can't remember which take this is. I think there's at least 2, if not 3 takes of Glorious Step from this session. These were recorded at afternoon sessions at the Vanguard, Sunday afternoon at the Vanguard. And when they were playing that melody, because the tempo was about like right in there, but during the head, he was making it feel about half as fast.
Mm-hmm.
So it has that kind of thing of like, there's musical movement, but it's there's a relaxing sort of,
Yeah.
almost like a slow motion kind of a thing sometimes. That's really cool, you know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that the way that they kind of breathe together. They start and stop ideas. It's
Yeah.
like there's no one's playing
Yeah.
quarter notes.
Right.
Everything kind of just takes a pause, and there's an emptiness for half a second or
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah.
Also, what strikes me is how in Bill Evans is. Like his rhythm is clean.
Oh yeah.
It lets everyone else.
But that's why Paul can play that way.
Right.
Totally.
You know, like,
Yep.
and that you'd experience that if you were playing with good musicians. It's like you can kind of suss it out and be like, okay, I can get away with some stuff because
Yep.
that's right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's in there. You know.
Yep. Yeah. There's always that process when you play with people of figuring out like, okay, how are the 3 of us or 5 of us, or how are we going to relate to one another? You know.
Yeah.
Because each group, the relations are a little bit different, you know, that's like the best part of it.
Sure.
If it was the same all the time, it'd be horribly
Yeah.
boring.
Some musicians or some leaders, they want a specific thing out of the drums, and you know, in a jazz setting, it's nice when you can get with people that you enjoy playing with, where you can kind of mix it up and
Yeah.
you know, feel comfortable to go there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
We're going to go to 2004, Tony Malaby, Adobe Blues. Reminding everyone, this is the same drummer that we're going to
know.
be checking out.
I don't know this record at all. I'm curious to hear it.
2004, Tony Malaby, Adobe Blues.
Who's on this, Stark?
It's just Motion and Drew Gress.
Cool.
It's a nice saxophone, bass, drum trio
Nice.
record.
I like Drew Gress. He's a wonderful player.
All right, so in this, I'm queuing it up here, 29 seconds in. What is the name of the record?
It's called
It is
Adobe.
called- What is the track? Adobe?
Adobe Blues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Again, somebody has to hold it down. Bass is holding it down. You know, playing simple.
But you know, it's not like, I mean, it's still there. You know, like
Yeah.
it's just not like,
It's not
here's this
explicit.
repetitive
Yeah.
pattern.
Yeah.
You know, and the sound of that bass drum just coming in sometimes, just
I know.
big explosions. It's odd, but I love it. And really, it's like, it's kind of similar to how he was just playing with Bill Evans in a weird way.
Yeah.
I mean, he's playing with sticks, and you know, but like it's the choices and just a lot of space. You know, it's cool.
It can create an existential crisis as a drummer. Like, what the hell are we supposed to be doing, actually? I'm just up here making sounds.
Yeah.
Well, you know, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, you don't get together with your 15-year-old friends trying to play a bossa nova and play like this or whatever, or try to play like Billy's Bounce or something. Like, but like, you know, eventually you can go this route if you decide to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important to point out that Paul made a deliberate decision. I'm going to be a composer and a band leader.
Yes. Yeah.
It gave him a place to experiment freely.
And there's so many records. Like, there are just dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of records from the later part of his life, you know, as a sideman, and tons as a leader.
He really did record a lot.
You know, I mean, I was telling Mike, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I probably have 100 albums with Paul Motian, like from the last 25 years of his life.
I'm sure.
You know?
Yeah, I'm sure.
And, you know, they're pretty killing.
I know. They are.
It is an experience that's different than most quote unquote jazz. It's a different, I feel different listening to it.
Totally.
I mean,
But you know, like, go back to the Keith Jarrett record from not too far before this, or like some stuff he recorded with Chick Corea at the Blue Note, or the records with the Lovano he made, those two with Hank Jones and George Mraz. Like, there's both of those things are in there. Sometimes it's just time playing, and sometimes it gets a little freer, but it's like, it really works. You know, and there's records where it's just like he's just painting the whole record. You know, if that makes sense to anybody, like painting like in that
With sound.
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what makes me this weird anxiety of, man, I want to do that, but I don't. What does that actually mean? You're just
It's
throwing your hands down on the instrument, and
You're right, though. It's a different experience than listening to a lot of other kinds of jazz music. You know, it's definitely a its own thing, which is great. Truly great.
I guess the question is, when do you know if it's good or not?
Yeah, but I don't think
we know that.
Here's the thing, though. I'm not saying you're saying this, but you know, he's not pissing around.
No,
No.
of course not.
He's not BSing.
Of course not.
Yeah.
He's not just like, let me throw the sticks and see what happens.
Right.
There might be a little of his spirit. I can't
Unknown
speak for
caller.
anybody. Yeah, this person has something to say. But
We're doing a call-in show now?
yeah, let's take a
Des Moines, Iowa,
That'd
go.
be amazing if I answered it.
That
And
would
you know
be
it's
incredible.
A spam call.
But do you know what I mean? Like it's you're not just like hoping it sounds good.
Right.
You know,
right,
it's like
right.
like I say this about any kind of playing. Like, it's all intentional.
Yeah, but
You
it's
know?
like it's
Hell, I was gonna say his mindset might be, let's try some things, but
Yeah.
it's not let's just BS and try some things. It's
Right,
like, let me
right.
make some decisions.
Yeah,
go for a thing and see what happens.
there's a consistency to how he approaches this stuff.
Oh,
for sure.
100%.
It's like there's a certain breath, like play and release kind of thing that he always does. It's just, you know, it always opens up the question, what is art? You know, what is music? And then
Totally.
that definitely is it. But
Yeah, no, I think I actually think just asking the question can be important sometimes, because then it just gets you thinking about, like, well, what do I like? You know,
Right.
do
Yeah.
I like this? I do. What do I like about it? Like, it's kind of a good thing.
yeah, it took
and
forever
I could
for
see
me to
somebody
like
not being into it.
it. Of
but
course, that's
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah.
I
Of
just
course.
happen to like love it. You know?
Probably most people would be like, that's interesting, but they wouldn't be like,
It's-
that makes me feel something.
It's not my favorite stuff, but I like listening to it. Like,
Yeah.
especially, it can be a great sort of way for me to get away from the other stuff that I do listen to all the time. It's like a musical palate cleanser almost. It's like, wow, it's great and it's so different. But it's not totally my favorite stuff, but it's great.
I mean, I'll say this. I think if it weren't for me listening to stuff like this, and you know, and Jack DeJohnette and Elvin and Ed Blackwell, like some of the freer music, like I'd be a totally different drummer. You know, I'd play the way I played when I was in my early 20s, and that's cool, and it was good on some level. But, and I'm not saying that, and I'm sure there are a lot of drummers that would rather me play the way I played when I was in my early 20s, because it was a little more like coming out of the drummers I grew up listening to, Gad and Weckel and Vinny and Dennis Chambers and these guys. But I'm not even sure where I'm going with this anymore because I'm getting old. But, like, I'm just so thankful that I got turned on to some musicians like this that got me asking that question, like, what do I like? Why do I like that? And it's like, it's not always appropriate to do it, but you have to find ways to do it. And I think this kind of stuff influences all my playing.
Sure.
Whether I'm playing fusion or I'm playing funk, it sounds silly, but like it's all in there. All these different textures and
Totally.
and ways to manipulate time and you know what I mean?
I do. It did the same for me because it made me ask, like, well, what? I kind of like this. What else do I like? And it helped me realize why I like what I do really like.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to kind of think about that stuff and not just blindly just kind of, listen to whatever. Even if it's something you like, it's good to examine, like, well, what is it about this that I like so much?
Sure.
And would there be other versions of this by other artists that you don't like? Like that?
Oh, of
How do you
course.
tell? That's
Of course.
Good point.
But I almost don't think of it as, to me, then it's just a different thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not necessarily what I like and what I don't, but there's some people that can do it, and there's people that don't really do it. And that might sound weird, but you know what I mean?
No.
I mean, the fact that a couple minutes of drums is making us have this conversation, that says it all right there. Like he it's effective. He's making us think, like, what the hell is that? What is life? Why am I here? Like all those things.
Well, I mean, and I'm not trying to talk about me, but I mean, I remember, Mike, when you came to Pittsburgh and we started hanging, one of the first gigs you saw me play was with John Shannon and Grubbs playing that Fourth River band.
Oh yeah.
And it's very inspired by this kind of freer playing. And I remember Mike saying to me,
some videos on our
and you said to me, like, this is some of my favorite stuff I've heard you play.
Yeah.
And I think that says something.
Yeah,
totally.
You'd heard all the early stuff, and like you were like, I can hear maybe something new about it or different. Or maybe not hearing me play like that.
It was the mystery, the magic of what are they doing and why is it so great? Like, it wasn't like, oh, I know the tune, I know the form, I know exactly what's happening, I know that lick, I know that lick, I know that cliche. It was like, what they're playing alone together, but what? Like, it was just a new experience.
Yeah, and I think it's just being willing to try to do it, and you learn from, like, I've heard Tom talk to me about that. It's just buddies talking about music and friendship and drumming, and like you're saying, like sometimes you're like, I want to find more situations to try to get me out of my thing. We all just want to get better.
Yep.
It's not to be, to me, it's not to be weird. It's not to be an outcast drummer or anything. It's just, I just want to be expressive and be able to handle as many different situations as I can, and hopefully continue to grow in some ways. Even though I'm sure a lot of drummers don't like it,
Yeah. I mean, anytime I don't get a chance to play really freely that much, but every time I do, I feel like it makes me just a better musician. So
right, because you got to listen.
Yeah, and
you can't just play.
Yeah, and you can't rely on the stuff that you always do. So it's a great way to just kind of really kind of assess yourself almost. And
that's where I want to be. Like what you just said, like. That's the thing I want to do best, is I want to use my ears.
Yeah.
To me, that's the most exciting playing, is when you're reacting and really listening. And when I get a compliment from someone that says, "Oh man, I can," thanks for, just sometimes people thank you for handling a certain situation a certain way. Mm-hmm. It's nice to know that they can hear you listening. Mm-hmm. 'Cause that's what I want from them when we're playing. Because sometimes the knock on a player, any instrument, you're like, I mean, this cat's not even listening.
No, totally.
They came here with an agenda.
Right.
And we all have our habits and we all have our faults as musicians. But the more you listen, man, the better you're going to play.
The art of playing music is the art of listening. That's how you create it. Can't do it if you're not not like that.
So that what you said is an amazing quote, and it goes right against, it's like the polar opposite of what a criticism I got was, I can hear you thinking, versus I can hear that you're listening. Two very different things. Yep. I was in a session and the producer was like, I can hear you thinking, man. Just stop thinking.
Yeah.
No.
I was listening too hard or something.
Yeah, I don't think thinking's always bad, but I get your point.
You know what I mean?
Sometimes it can be.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
thinking versus listening are two different things, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, let's go to Paul Bley, Calls 1975.
Oh yeah, I like
Don't know
this
record
recording.
at all. So what is it? And
So this is a Paul Bley record. I believe it was recorded in '75, and it features Paul and great John Gilmore on tenor saxophone, who I'm a big fan of. I'm also a big fan of Paul Bley. I think he's a really unique and great musician.
What's the name of the album?
Calls.
Okay.
Yeah. And I chose this track and this clip just because I really like the interaction between him and everybody else. I don't know. I just like it. So we could listen to it and then.
this is 155 into the tune.
A lot going on there.
Yeah, a lot going on.
But I think what I like about it is there's tempo, but not really.
Yeah.
There's melody, from various people, and he's kind of, it's almost like he's sort of, it's like he's interacting with everybody in his unique way. you know?
It sounds like a cocktail party. You're like,
Yeah,
hey,
yes.
what are you doing? What are you up to?
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I don't have this record actually. It's one of the.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I've been looking for. I think this one one called Turning Point.
Yes.
I've been looking for that.
Yes.
Like a real copy.
It's hard. They're hard to find.
That is Turning Point.
Oh, is this on
according
Turning Point?
To the artwork.
I asked what the album was. Oh, I think that is a Turning Point cover.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you asked me what the track was. I'm sorry.
I said the album, but so I was wondering if that's. So yeah, this is the record I've been trying to find a copy of, especially on CD. But yeah, cool. Who plays bass on this record? Do you remember?
Peacock.
Gary Peacock.
Okay.
So the cymbal sound, that is the, correct me if I'm wrong, he used the Bill Evans cymbal on everything he's ever done. And that's that cymbal.
It's an A. Well, it's at the end. It became usually he had two of the Peisty sound creations, the same cymbal, 22s. He usually plays that, and then the A has a little chunk taken out of it. That's the cymbal I think a lot of people talk about because it was the Bill Evans cymbal.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
So that's it though. That sound there probably.
I think so.
I
I
think
think it's
it
usually
is.
always playing it. But it also, by that point, he might have been playing one of those Peisties as well. I couldn't tell exactly from that. I wasn't thinking about it. I was just checking out that record, the music.
All right, we're going to 2006. Frank Kimbrough, Beginning.
I like this record.
Let me cue it up. This is one you talked about before, but
Mm-hmm.
was this one you discovered on your own or something? How'd you find this
I
record?
just found it because it was another record with Paul on it. As I just was always looking for stuff with Paul that I didn't have. I eventually found this record, and I think I might have turned you onto this record.
You did.
And then shortly after this, there was that quartet record with Nash that you turned me onto.
Yep. I really like Frank Kimbrough. He's a wonderful musician.
He's great. Yeah, I mean, I talked about this on that when you interviewed the first thing with me when I talked about the 10 records I loved.
Right,
I talked about this record.
Yep.
This is just a cool record.
Mm-hmm.
So this tune is called Beginning, and we're going to start from the beginning.
all you can do is keep your ears open and try to, not do too much. And like, how do you approach that? How do you, if you're thrown in a situation like that, what do you do besides listen and react accordingly? I mean, if you play too much, you're going to just be step on everything. But the way he handles that kind of playing in general, whether it's with his own trio with Motian and Frizzell, whether it's this kind of stuff, that trio Tethered Moon with Gary Peacock, and I'm going to mispronounce his name, that they call him Pooh, that Japanese pianist.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so much of this kind of playing, or the stuff with Jerry Allen and Charlie Hayden, it's like you have to just be listening, and really, be sensitive, but at the same time be decisive. And
that's the challenge.
And it's hard to play for long periods of time in that zone without feeling like you're just BSing.
Yeah.
If you do too much, you're just.
No, you're right.
You're
totally
listening.
right.
Now there's versions of this kind of playing that's more active. It's still the same kind of role of the drums. You can do more as it gets a little more intense, or if it's busier or more angular or whatever. But this type of playing particularly, it's hard to do that.
It's very hard to do that. And like you said, sound good, contribute, and it's for
and
a
stay
long
interesting.
period. Yeah, absolutely. It's really hard.
And you need to be playing with great musicians that can.
I was about to say,
they make you feel like I don't have to do too much. Let me just.
100%.
Do you think that was there any composition to that, or was that all just improvised on a idea? I mean,
no, there's a tune. I mean, it's an actual tune, and I know because I've told Throck this story. When I heard this record and then one or two others, I was looking for some of his tunes, like lead sheets to play, and I couldn't find any. I ended up on Frank Kimbrough's website, so I just sent him an email. And I said, "Do you have any of your tunes for sale anywhere? I'd love to buy some of the lead sheets." And like a half an hour later, he wrote me this email and he said, "Tell me what you want. I'll send them to you. No problem." And he just said, "Thanks for being interested in my music."
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I mean, I was just like.
So what did you get? Was it just a melody and chords, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's
sheet?
it's pretty simple, but it's just a very.
Huh.
Yep. All his tunes are not all, but a lot of his tunes are like that. They have a nice, they're really nice, man.
Yeah. And there's stuff that's more tuney.
Totally.
Where you're like, okay, this was some time, whatever.
Yeah,
There's different drummers that have played with
Yep.
Frank and handled it really well. Tons of guys.
Yep.
I do think, there's a reason he gets called to play on this record. And I think a lot of it's influenced by him and bands he's been involved with.
Totally.
And there's a lot of like younger musicians that are very influenced by this and have patterned their own ensembles after this kind of mood that Paul brings to the and other musicians. I'm not just saying it's just Paul Motian, but he's a big part of it.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, the fact that he did commit to being a leader and a composer means now he has that influence on people.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not just wanting him as the drummer; they want his whole aesthetic to be
Absolutely,
part of it.
yeah. And like Throck said, he recorded a lot in the end of his career, which is really cool. All these different projects and groups and combinations. It's really cool.
Let's go slightly back in time, 1988. Joe Lovano, Dewey said.
Oh yeah.
Why'd you pick this one?
This is a record Throck turned me onto a number of years ago. Village Rhythm, Joe Lovano, which is a great group. Really great tunes. I really like the music on this. I chose this because it's a cool tune, obviously dedicated to the great Dewey Redman, but the way it's structured, Paul makes a lot of contributions during the melody. So I think we're going to hear it from the beginning, yeah?
Yep.
Cool.
Here we go.
I know. It's really great.
Cool.
So I want to say something about this.
Please.
I'm at level with these records. In some ways, and I couldn't love this guy. I couldn't love Paul any more than I love him. But this is probably my least. The thing I like least about him is kind of like the soloing on like faster stuff. When he's just kind of like, I don't want to say he's just banging on drums because he's not. But when he gets kind of that hard hitting, like playing rim shots on the toms, and it gets real like caveman-esque a little bit, for lack of a better term. Like I totally respect it, and I'm glad he does it because it just gets me thinking about different ways to do things. But I do like it. But I prefer, I guess, when he's being a little more,
I
a
understand.
little less loud, you know. But I mean, that's not a. I understand if I'm making everybody mad right now. Like,
No.
Because like I feel like because I love him so much, I have reason I can talk bad.
Hey, man.
And I don't mean to talk bad about any of these guys that I love so much, but I do still like it. And there's recordings of this tune. I think they played this on a record with Bill on this.
I think you're right.
I might be wrong. They might do a version of this on Landmarks or one of the other records, one of the other Joe records.
Yeah.
And it's just cool hearing different people play the same music sometimes, you know.
Well, one thing I like about this record, like I said before, I really like the tunes. And I mean, it's a great band, but it almost feels like sometimes when I listen to this, I feel like it's like a band that has like, in Paul's like the sub drummer.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And he's just coming with like this total, because a lot of the tunes on here are very like, they're not traditional jazz, but they're very swinging, groove oriented tunes. And he's just kind of like the sub who's like, yeah, we're not doing it like that today, you know?
Yeah.
But it's great. Like I really, some of his phrases are so
and I do love it. I guess if there's one thing I didn't take from it is some of that hard hitting.
I hear you.
Because he plays like that a lot with the Electric Bebop band, like the soloing.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that stuff.
And then also the band with like the on Broadway records with Charlie and Mark Johnson.
Yeah.
Frizzell. Some of the drum soloing can get a little
I'm not a huge fan of that either, but it's kind of it's cool.
It is cool though.
I kind of need it though after all the real kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, he was making a statement, you know.
He was.
And it's like, boom, check this out.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do this now.
And his phrasing is cool.
It is cool. Yeah.
You know, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
And I couldn't love him anymore. Let's just get that out there.
Oh
you know?
man, it's like who handed Paul the sticks? Like Lewis Nash. Like, hey, here's this real tight.
Right.
All the arrangements are real tight. Here you go.
Yeah.
Now you play this tune.
No, it's like he's the sub drummer. It's like, hey, look, I can't make it Friday, but don't worry, I got this guy Paul. He's a little different, but you're gonna like him.
Yeah.
We're gonna play the same book though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
There's a recording. I think I sent it to you. There's a recording of Old New Dreams playing live. It's on YouTube.
Yes, with him.
With Motian soloing.
Yes.
And
I love that.
And that band's really loose.
Yeah.
And it kind of, but like Paul has a history of playing with all those guys.
Totally.
You know, I
But
guess
he and Ed Blackwell.
Dawn less than Charlie and Dewey.
Yeah.
But it was cool to hear him because he might have been like, what are we going to play? They're like, you'll be just doing your Paul Motian thing.
Yeah, just play.
And he just does this thing and it's awesome.
It's great. Yeah.
You know,
it's really cool.
There's
to hear
another
him.
story I'll tell real quick. And I can't remember if I heard Larry Goldings tell the story or if someone tell the story that Larry Goldings told them. But this is like three things removed. But this is a great story.
I think I know.
So Goldings had all these records with Bill Stewart and Peter Bernstein, like all the organ trio records. And then all of a sudden in the 90s, he made a record. He was on Warner Brothers. He made a piano trio record playing pianos at organ. And Larry Grenadier's on bass and Motian's on it. And I guess the story is that Larry called Motian on the phone and he already agreed to do the record. And he said, hey man, like I was just thinking we could get together and have a little rehearsal. And Paul says to him, now why would you want to do that? And he says to him, well, I just wanted to see what it's going to feel like. And he goes, you'll feel it. And I guess Larry was like, okay then, well, I'll see you at the session. And that was kind of it.
That's amazing.
And I'm not sure if that's like totally being a jerk
legend,
or if it's just like awesome
Yeah.
or both. But I kind of love it.
You get to a certain stage where it's like, you want me on the record? Well, I'm going to do me.
Yeah, and
I do the record,
it's
not
a
a rehearsal.
beautiful record, man. The
Yeah.
record's killing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's just how he wanted it to be. He's like, I'm just gonna play, man. You know.
I mean, how many people said the first take is always the best take? Always
Yeah,
record
a
your
lot of
first
times.
take. So why not just have that
Monk.
aesthetic on everything?
That was Monk's thing, and it's been my experience when you're playing jazz and creative music. The first or second take is really kind of it. After that,
And really, I think mistakes. We're getting to some other stuff now, but like mistakes you think are a big deal, they're not really
they're
a big
not.
deal.
Yeah,
A lot of times it's just if it feels great and the spirit's there,
That's it.
Leave it alone.
That's it,
I
man.
think we talked about that with like the Weckels thing with the electric band. It's like that band didn't do a lot of takes.
Yeah.
It's super clean and like you
Yep.
think they're so tight, but Chick wanted it to sound fresh.
Yeah.
And he's like, why are we going to do it to death and try to make it perfect? Let's just play.
Totally,
So
it's true.
Tom, let's do your final pick here. 1990, Jerry Allen, Charlie Hayden, Paul Motian, Obtuse Angles.
Yeah, Throck and I talk about this group a lot. This is a really we both really like this trio, and they thankfully made a few recordings. I wish they had made more. This is from a Live at the Village Vanguard recording that came out, but it's sort of a CD came out after it with additional stuff that was not on.
it's kind of like the same as that Jarrett stuff we just talked about.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
got released later with extra stuff that didn't come out.
Exactly. And I really like this group. Dave and I talk about this a lot about how Charlie Hayden and Paul have a long history together playing with a lot of different people. And Jerry, I think, brings out some unique things in both of them. And just the way the three of them play together, that the relationship they have is really great. I was honored to play a couple times with Jerry, and I mentioned to her once, I said, I really love the group with Charlie and Paul, and she just smiled and said, yeah, thank you. You know, like she was like, yeah, it was great, wasn't it? You know, like it's beautiful. You know, it's and the tunes they play are really good and really interesting, and I happen to really like this tune. So what we're going to hear is sort of the beginning. Paul plays this very interesting thing, and then they go into the tune, and it's great.
Here we go. From the top. The dichotomy of like randomness to I can play time like the best of them.
This group is so good, man.
It's really it's really cool music. Really,
You
really
hear all
great.
this, like hearing Jerry play with Tony Williams or Ralph Peterson or Jack or
Yep.
Jeff Watt. Like it's so like she sounds great always, but something about this band, man. She's I mean, I don't want to say she's the star of the band. They're all three equal stars, but she really shines. And these records are great. If you like to check, I would recommend these records.
They're a little tough to find, but you can find them. And there's something about the chemistry of the three of them and what they all bring and how it works. Yeah, it's really, I'm so glad that I got into this because it's just interesting.
I was so excited when they released that. I was like, wow,
I
more
know.
stuff from. I was so happy.
The Year of the Dragon is another one that's great, and then the live one in Montreal during the Charlie Hayden celebration in 1989 is a great live recording. I'm so glad that there's more than like just one recording of them.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, to be a fly on the wall, like I think of Paul being so serious and artistic, but You know, they had to be laughing sometimes.
Oh, I think there's some
You
humor
know.
and fun, a lot of fun in there, and
Totally.
and
I mean, the
a lot
irony
of joy.
of it,
You know,
Yeah. And it sounds like they enjoyed playing together. You know, you can kind of hear that and feel that.
Who would think you're gonna set up the tune by playing a pretty loud random drum solo, and then it's gonna go. Like it's just.
I know.
You know, it wasn't composed that way. It was like, Paul, just play.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd get away with it on a Motown review. But.
Probably not. That's a group that I wish I could have heard them at the Vanguard for like
Same,
5
yeah.
nights in a row, and to go back each night and to hear, you know, some of the same tunes and just hear how they change from night to night and how it all like that's to me man, that would be so fascinating.
I think the biggest thing is I never saw Paul live. I always just wonder. I wonder this about a lot of drummers that I didn't get to see live. I wonder this about Tony as well. I wonder how loud the loud really is. You know, like I'm sure it's loud, but I wonder with Paul, like when he's playing, like with the trio with Frizzell and Lovano, or with Jerry and Charlie, and it gets loud. I wonder if it's like, oh yeah, it's not so crazy loud, or I wonder if it's like, holy cow, that's really loud.
I don't think it's crazy loud.
Okay.
Because I saw the one group that one time, and it was very dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, the dynamics were great, but the louds weren't like, whoa, it wasn't like that,
Yeah.
but it was like, okay, it's loud, you know, like it's,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah, that's what I figured. I mean,
I imagine Tony was probably loud though at the end.
yeah, he sounds like he's loud.
That's a different.
I've heard that he was not welcome with his band at the Vanguard because he played too loud.
Oh,
I've
okay.
heard that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's 100% true, but I've heard that a few times.
Yeah.
He was loud.
Oh yeah, he could play loud.
That
Yeah.
band was killing though.
Oh my gosh.
Of all the drummers I've seen, Paul would not be the one that I remember being loud.
Yeah.
I saw the Electric Bebop Band once, and I remember nothing about the dynamics. I just remember the music being alien music. Like,
Wow.
I don't understand what is going on
Yeah.
for an hour straight.
Hey, I have one more, right?
Yeah.
Before this, I just wanted to say there's a really, really killing podcast called Uncle Paul's Jazz Closet that his niece runs, and there are just countless episodes. And Paul, I guess, was really good at documenting rehearsals and live gigs, and she's always playing just little gems all the time. I've listened to maybe 20 of these, and there's interviews with musicians he's played with. There's stories. He was good about documenting, like journaling, and she'll read from that, as well as playing stuff from him, albums as a leader, albums as a sideman. So if you're interested in any of that, like that's a really good way to just learn some more about Paul and support that podcast. It's an endless pit of music and information.
That's a great thing to.
What's the title again?
do.
It's called Uncle Paul's Jazz Closet.
There we go. We're going to wrap it up with probably my personal favorite version of Paul Motion is with the Frizzell and Joe.
Yeah, I
Lovano
figured we would
trio.
end with this. It makes a lot of sense.
So while I'm queuing it up, any final words, Throng?
No, man, just nice to hang with you guys and check out music and talk about it.
Yeah, man, it's great. I got a few new things to check out, which is good.
Yeah, I mean it's just so invigorating to hear stuff that is challenging almost everything you think about.
Oh
musically.
man, yes.
It's like
Yep.
it's not challenging like, oh, he's playing like so hard drums.
It makes you think. Yeah, man.
All right, here we go.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, please write us a review on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you're getting the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop us a comment on what you like about the show, what you'd like to see us do differently, or some other topic ideas you might have. As always, make sure you're subscribing. You can always reach me if any comments, suggestions at drumcandypodcast@gmail.com. Have a good week. Go listen to some of this cool music, and we'll see you next time.